Hey, I'm Lonnie. If someone had told me I would one day stand in this position fighting the people I called family, I would have said, no, not me. But life has a way of testing the strength you never knew you had. Before we begin, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below for more powerful stories like this. Your support means the world to us. I am Sandra Lawson, and I was 31 years old the day my mother handed me a document that changed everything I thought I knew about the word family. It was a humid Tuesday evening in Enugu, the kind of evening where the air sits heavy on your skin like a damp wrapper and the generator hum from neighboring compounds fills the silence. Mama had come to my flat unannounced, the way she always did, carrying a small cooler of egusi soup as if the food would soften whatever was inside the envelope she pressed into my hands immediately after. Just sign where I showed you, Sandra dear, she said, her voice coated in that particular sweetness she only used when she wanted something. It is just a formality. You know how these lawyers like to complicate simple things. She smiled and I smiled back, and she left before the soup had even cooled. If this story is touching your heart, please like, share, and subscribe. There is more to come. We tell these truths so others know they are not alone. I sat at my kitchen table in the dark. Nipa had taken light again, with only my rechargeable lantern and the sound of rain beginning on the zinc roof. I read every word of that document. Then I read it again. 6 pages of legal language, tight and deliberate, requesting that I relinquish my claim as sole beneficiary of my late grandfather's estate in Awka. Grandpa George, that was what we called him, had died 3 months before at 82, sharp and deliberate until the very last week. And now my mother Dorothy, my uncle Raymond, and my aunt Gloria were asking me, quietly with egusi soup as a bribe, to sign away everything he had left me. I did not sign. Grandpa George, whose full name was George Emmanuel Lawson, had built his compound in Awka from nothing. He was a carpenter's apprentice at 14, a master craftsman at 25, a man who planted palm trees the year I was born and told me they would be mine when they bore fruit. He had 4 children, but it was me, his first grandchild, the one who followed him to market on Saturday mornings and sat beside him when he counted his savings in the evenings, who he chose to carry his name forward. Not his sons. Not his daughters. Me. Sandra, who he called my Sandy girl. I was the one who read his letters to him when his eyes grew weak. I was the one who slept on a mat beside his bed when he was sick and nobody else could come. I was the one who held his hand when he crossed. The will was real. It was signed, stamped, witnessed by his lawyer, Bar. Philip Osei, and by his oldest friend, Chief Walter Obi of Amabia, a man so respected in Anambra State that his signature alone carried the weight of 10 witnesses. Grandpa George had not been confused. He had not been pressured. He had been precise, the way he was precise about every joint he ever fitted in a piece of wood. But the family had gathered in the sitting room of my Uncle Raymond's house in Awka the week after the funeral, and the conversation that happened there, I only heard about it from my cousin Beverly, who called me afterward crying, was not about grief. It was about land. About the compound. About the rental income from the shops Grandpa George had built along the Onitsha Road. They talked figures. They talked percentages. And then someone, Beverly said she thought it was Auntie Gloria, said, Sandra will not fight us. She is a quiet girl. That sentence. That single sentence was the thing that woke me up from the grief and planted something harder in its place. I texted Bar. Philip Osei from under my lantern that rainy night. Sir, is the will airtight? Can they challenge it? His reply came within the hour, short and serious. They already filed a motion this afternoon. Come to my office tomorrow morning. I arrived at his office in Awka before 8 o'clock, wearing a plain black dress, carrying a notebook. Bar. Osei was a small, careful man with reading glasses permanently on his nose and a manner of speaking that never wasted a word. He spread the documents on his desk. My mother Dorothy had alleged that Grandpa George was of diminished mental capacity in his final year. Uncle Raymond had co-signed. Auntie Gloria had provided a statement from a doctor none of us had ever heard of, whose name did not appear in any of Grandpa George's medical records. They want the compound, Bar. Osei said. The shops. The land. All of it. I looked at the papers a long time. Then I said, what do we need? He looked at me over his glasses, and for the first time I saw something like relief in his eyes, as though he had been waiting to see what kind of woman I was. Evidence, he said. And your grandfather already gave us plenty. That evening I drove to Oka. Not to the family compound, not yet, but to the small house Grandpa George had used as his private office for 30 years. A room attached to the back of the compound that nobody used because it smelled of sawdust and old paper. He had given me the key years ago. Keep this, Sandy, he had said. One day you will understand why. I understood that night. The room was exactly as he had left it. Files in labeled folders. Property deeds. Bank books going back to 1987. Letters he had written and never sent. And at the back of the bottom drawer, wrapped in encre cloth, a small recording device, the kind you would use for interviews, and a sealed envelope with my name on the front in his careful, old-fashioned handwriting. I opened the envelope sitting on his dusty stool. Inside was a single folded sheet and a note that read, "My Sandy girl, if you are reading this, then they have started. Do not be afraid. Everything they need to know I have already said." I unfolded the sheet. It was a list of instructions, where to find documents, who to call, the name of a second lawyer he had retained independently, a woman named Mrs. Caroline Adeyemi in Onitsha, and at the bottom one line in capital letters. "The recording is with Chief Walter Obi. Go and collect it." I sat in that sawdust-smelling room for a long time. The compound outside was quiet. Palm trees moved in the night breeze. And I felt for the first time since his funeral, that he had not left me at all. He had only gone ahead, to prepare the road. I drove home that night with the envelope in my bag in the kind of calm that comes not from peace but from purpose. My mother Dorothy had called twice. Uncle Raymond had sent a voice note saying we should settle this thing like a family. I did not respond to either. There was nothing to settle. There was only the truth, and the truth had already been written down. I whispered to no one in particular as I turned into my street. "Grandpa George, I hear you. I am coming." The next 3 months were the kind of months that strip a person down to their real bones. It did not begin like a war. Wars in Nigerian families never do. They begin like misunderstandings. They begin like concern. They begin with your mother appearing at your office on a Wednesday afternoon carrying a flask of pepper soup and sitting across from you with sorrowful eyes as though you are the one who has done something wrong. "Sandra, I beg you," Dorothy said, hands folded on her lap like she was in church. "Do not let strangers, lawyers, courts, enter our family matter. Whatever your grandfather wrote, we can sort it among ourselves. That is how family works." I watched her hands. Steady. Practiced. I thought of the envelope she had given me with the egusi soup. The document she expected me to sign without reading. "Mama," I said quietly, "if this were truly a family matter, you would not have filed in court before telling me." Her face changed for 1 second, just one, before the concerned expression returned. She left the pepper soup on my desk. I gave it to the security man at the gate. Mrs. Caroline Adeyemi arrived in my life like a small, immovable wall. She was 50-something, compact, with natural gray locks and the kind of courtroom presence that made junior lawyers straighten their spines automatically. When I called her number from Grandpa George's list, she said, "I have been expecting you for 3 months. Your grandfather paid my retainer in full before he died. Come tomorrow." That sentence, "I have been expecting you," told me everything I needed to know about how carefully he had arranged all of this. Together, Mrs. Adeyemi and Bar Osei built the response. Witness statements from Chief Walter Obi. Medical records from Grandpa George's actual doctor, Dr. Patrick Nwosu of Holy Cross Specialist Hospital in Oka, confirming that his mind was sound in the period the will was executed. A sworn affidavit from the 2 men who had witnessed the signing. And then the recording. Chief Walter Obi was a man in his late 80s, slow in the body but sharp as broken glass in the mind. I visited him at his compound in Amabia, where he sat in a carved wooden chair like a man who had never once doubted his place on earth. He received me with kola nut and prayer, then handed me a small brown envelope without ceremony. "Your grandfather was afraid of nothing," he said. "He made that recording the same afternoon he finished the will. He told me, if they try to say I was not myself, play this. Take it. Do what he asked." The recording was 40 minutes long. Grandpa George sat in front of someone's camera. The footage was later confirmed to have been filmed by Bar Osei's own office assistant, and spoke slowly and clearly about his intentions. He named the compound. He named the shops. He named each child and grandchild and explained exactly why he was leaving everything to me. He was not unkind about the others. But he was truthful. "My children love money," he said at one point and almost smiled. "Sandra loves people. The land must go to someone who loves people." Mrs. Adeyemi filed the recording into evidence on a Thursday morning. By Friday, the other side's lawyer, a flashy man from Lagos named Bar Kenneth Bello, who wore agbada to court and spoke English like he was performing, had filed an objection claiming the recording was manufactured. The judge, a woman of about 60 named Honorable Justice Margaret Ease, looked at him over her reading glasses and said in a tone that ended the argument before it began, "Counsel, I will watch this recording myself." She watched it twice. Meanwhile, the family campaign moved from legal to personal. It always does in Nigeria. When the court does not give you what you want, you go to the family meeting. When the family meeting fails, you go to the church. When the church fails, you call the oldest uncle from the village, the one with the staff and the title, and you let him summon everyone to a gathering and speak about family unity and the shame of dragging ancestors' names to court. Uncle Raymond arranged exactly this. A Saturday morning in the village square, elders seated on plastic chairs under a mango tree. I came. I wore a plain navy blue wrapper and a white blouse and sat where they directed me, across from my mother and uncle and aunt, who had dressed in matching ankara as though this were a celebration. The oldest man present, a titled elder called Chief Arthur Enns, spoke for 20 minutes about the importance of peace in the family. He spoke about how the white man's court was not our way. He spoke about how Grandpa George would be pained to see his children fighting. When he finished, he looked at me. "Sandra, my daughter. Can you not find it in your heart to share what your grandfather gave you, so that peace returns to this family?" I waited for the silence to settle. Then I spoke respectfully. "Chief, with all the honor I have for you and for this gathering, my grandfather's will is his voice from the grave. If I set it aside because people are uncomfortable with what he chose, I am saying his voice does not matter. Is that the kind of granddaughter I should be?" Silence. Dorothy's jaw tightened. Uncle Raymond looked at the ground. Auntie Gloria, who had spent the gathering fanning herself and looking martyred, suddenly found something very interesting to study on the hem of her wrapper. Chief Arthur Enns looked at me for a long moment. Then he said almost quietly, "This girl has spoken." And he called the meeting to a close. It was not a victory, but it was a door slamming shut on one of their strategies. New tactics arrived like waves. My cousin Dennis, Raymond's son, who had always called me sis at Christmas, leaked a version of events to people in our church circle, painting me as a greedy woman who had manipulated an old man. Messages came to my phone from people I had known since primary school. "Sandra, is it true? Such a pity." I stopped reading them. I opened a new notebook and began to document everything. Dates, names, messages, who said what and when. 3 backup drives. Mrs. Adeyemi had told me, paper wins cases. Emotion loses them. Then something happened that none of them had anticipated. While cross-referencing Grandpa George's bank records, the old books I found wrapped in ankara cloth, Mrs. Adeyemi discovered that for 7 years, monthly withdrawals had been leaving his account and entering a business account registered in Uncle Raymond's wife's name. Small amounts always, carefully kept below the alert threshold. But 7 years of small amounts added up to something very large. When confronted with the figures, Uncle Raymond's lawyer went quiet for 3 days. Mrs. Adeyemi called me that evening, her voice carrying the particular satisfaction of a woman who has found exactly what she was looking for. "They were taking from him while he lived," she said. "They were not mourning at the funeral, Sandra. They were calculating how much longer they could take." I sat with that information for a long time. The anger that moved through me was not hot. It was cold. The kind of cold that makes you very clear. "File the countersuit," I said. "Everything." 6 weeks after we filed the countersuit, the judge made her ruling. I was sitting in Mrs. Adeyemi's office in Onitsha when the call came, one of her clerks, breathless on the phone. Honorable Justice Margaret Ease had reviewed all evidence, admitted the video recording in full, dismissed the challenge to the will on all grounds, and referred the financial withdrawals case to the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission for further investigation. The will stood. The compound was mine. The shops were mine. The land Grandpa George had planted with palm trees the year I was born was mine. Mrs. Adeyemi set down her phone and looked at me. "It is done," she said simply. I did not shout. I did not cry. I sat in that office with my notebook on my lap and thought of an old man who had chosen his words carefully for a camera, trusting that I would one day sit in exactly this moment and know that he had held the road open for me. "Thank you, Grandpa George," I whispered. "I heard you." The consequences that followed were not things I arranged. They arrived like the rain arrives, not because you called it but because the season demanded it. Uncle Raymond's EFCC summons came before the month ended. The business account in his wife's name was frozen. 2 of his contracts, he did government procurement work, were suspended pending investigation. He called me once late at night, voice stripped of all its usual performance. "Sandra, I know I have wronged you. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I am only asking, do not let them destroy my children for my mistakes." I listened to the voicemail 3 times. Then I saved it and said nothing. Auntie Gloria sent a message through Beverly. She was willing to return the jewelry she had taken from Grandpa George's room the week he died. Pieces I had not even known were missing until Beverly mentioned them. I told Beverly to let her keep them. Some things are not worth the energy of recovery. My mother Dorothy came to my flat one Sunday afternoon alone without soup or envelopes or sweetness. She sat across from me at my kitchen table, the same table where I had read her document by lantern light, and was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "I did not think you would fight." I said, "I know." She said, "Your grandfather always said you were stronger than you looked." I said, "He was the only one who was not afraid of that." She left without asking for anything. It was the most honest conversation we had ever had. I did not know what to do with it, so I simply kept it, the way you keep a stone that is not beautiful but is real. The compound itself was the thing that needed the most attention. I had decided, after long conversations with Mrs. Adeyemi and after many evenings sitting on Grandpa George's porch listening to the palm trees, not to simply hold the estate as personal inheritance. I registered the Lawson Community Foundation, a small nonprofit with a board of 3 independent trustees and a mandate built from everything Grandpa George had talked about on those porch evenings. Skills training for young people from the surrounding streets. A microgrant fund for women in the market who needed starting capital. Maintenance of the compound as a community gathering space. The rental income from the shops along the Onitsha Road would fund all of it. The first board meeting was held in the compound's main sitting room. I opened Grandpa George's windows I had never seen open before, always shut against the dust, and let the afternoon light come in. A woman named Mama Victoria, who had sold pepper from a small stall near the compound gate for 20 years and who Grandpa George had quietly supported through her children's school fees, sat in the corner chair and wept when I explained what the foundation would do. "He was a good man," she kept saying. "He was a good man." I said, "Yes. And we are going to make sure people know it." The skills training program started with 12 young people, welders, tailors, 2 who wanted to learn plumbing, in the backyard of the compound under a canopy I bought from my own savings. I watched them work one Saturday morning, noise and concentration filling the air where grief had lived, and felt something I could only describe as continuation. Not healing exactly. Not forgetting. Just the sense that something important had been handed forward and was now moving. I found another note from Grandpa George tucked inside a Bible he had left in the sitting room, on the day I was sorting through his personal things to archive them properly. The note said only, "My Sandy girl, the people around you will tell you who you are. Choose which voices to believe." No date. No context. Just that. I folded it and put it in my wallet where I have kept it since. Beverly called one evening, emotional, saying that our family was scattered, that the EFCC case had humiliated Uncle Raymond, that Auntie Gloria was barely speaking to anyone, that Dorothy seemed quieter than she had ever been. She asked if I felt guilty. I thought about it honestly before answering. "I feel sad," I told her. "That is different from guilty. I did not destroy anything. I only refused to let them destroy what he built." Beverly was quiet for a while. Then she said, "I am proud of you." It was the first time anyone in the family had said that since Grandpa George died. I received it carefully like something fragile. The palm trees he planted the year I was born are tall now. They stand along the eastern wall of the compound in a row of 7, casting long evening shadows across the courtyard. I walk past them most mornings when I come to open the foundation office. We converted the small side building where I first found his files into a proper workspace. Some mornings I stop and put my hand on the trunk of the first one, the tallest, and just stay there for a moment. He told me once when I was small and sitting beside him watching him work, that palm trees do not hurry. They grow in the direction of light, slowly, and they do not apologize for how large they become. I did not understand it then. I understand it now. A journalist from an Anambra newspaper came to profile the foundation last month. She called it a resilience story. A woman who stood firm against a family trying to steal her inheritance. I corrected her gently. It is not my story, I said. It is his story continuing. I am just the one he trusted to carry it. She looked at me for a moment, then wrote something in her notebook. I did not ask what. On the afternoon the first set of apprentices completed their training, we held a small ceremony in the compound. Certificates. Prayers. Jollof rice cooked by Mama Victoria, who had appointed herself the foundation's unofficial caterer. One of the young men, a thin, serious boy named Henry who had wanted to quit twice, held up his welding certificate and looked at it like it was something sacred. He said, "Nobody ever gave me something like this before." I said, "You earned it." He nodded, still looking at the certificate. "When I have my own business," he said, "I will bring somebody here." And that one sentence, was worth every document, every court date, every family meeting under the mango tree, every cold anger I had carried and then laid down. I am Sandra Lawson. I am 32 years old. I am the granddaughter of a carpenter who built things to last and trusted me to understand why. I am the caretaker of land that was not taken from me, because I chose to stand in the doorway of it and refused to move. I am a woman who learned that betrayal, when it comes from family, carries a particular weight. Not because it is worse than other betrayals, but because you loved those people. You let them stand close. And when they reached for what was not theirs, you had to choose with your whole self what kind of person you were going to be on the other side of the hurt. I chose my grandfather's kind. The palm trees grow. The children weld and sew and learn to read spreadsheets in a room that smells of sawdust and possibility. The land remembers everything it has held, and it holds me now, not as an inheritance, but as a home I earned by showing up when it was difficult and staying when it would have been easier to run. If this story moved you, if you saw yourself or someone you love in Sandra's journey, please like, share, and subscribe. We carry these stories because they belong to all of us. Thank you for reading until the very end. Go and be the person your Grandpa George believed you could be.